My name is InsaneRaven, and welcome to the first episode of the 100 Days of Halloween podcast. Why this podcast? Why this title? Well, I get annoyed with people who celebrate Christmas 3 months in advance. So, to get revenge, I was like, you know what? I'm going to have 100 Days of Halloween. And 2 days ago, it was 90 days from Halloween. And, 88 days of Halloween just doesn't have the same ring to it. So I went with 100 Days of Halloween. And if you guys liked this for some reason, the next season will actually have the full 100 days. So what is this podcast about? Sticking into the patriarchal, societal influence of Father Christmas. And we talk about, and by we, I mean me, I talk about horror movies that I watch every single day up until Halloween. Now, I fully intended for this episode, this beginning episode, to be all about the wondrous movie 47 Meters Down, because it is like the last week of summer here by us. It is where I'm at, all the local school kids are going back to school and class. Colleges are opening back up, all of that stuff's going on. But we're still within our parameters. I was like, let me watch a shock horror movie, like a creature feature, as it were. So I went on an Amazon Prime Video, not sponsored. Sponsor me, you cowards. And I was scrolling through looking for my movie that I had planned to watch today. And 2 words jumped out at me, and my life is forever changed. I don't care if no one ever listens to this. I don't care if no one ever sees this. I now care that I now live in a time after watching the sci-fi original movie Toxic Shock. Now, I didn't know, and I cannot stress that one enough, I did not know it was a sci-fi original until I hit play. And the credits came up. I was like, oh fuck. I'm 30 seconds in. I'm in too deep. And in the first 2 minutes, right, there is a lovely couple driving on ATVs. He is fully dressed in khakis and a button-up shirt and a vacation beach house hat. She's in a bikini. Because beach, it makes sense. Alright? Narratively, it makes sense. And they're all being giggly and like, oh my god, and oh my god, yeah, my sister is gonna find out about what's happening. We can't be doing this. And then he's like, okay, but babe, like one more time. Like, And I'm like, I'm about to start my new podcast with a porno. Not a porno. The guy goes, oh yeah. Again, still might be a porno. And then revs his ATV and drives further up on the sand. Turning to, I think his plan was to splash in the water with his ATV. I'm not sure. But then the magic of editing, a massive log is there now, because he goes flying into the water, like face first, wrecking his ATV and crashing, going, help, help, off camera, of course. Like, you hear him off screen screaming, help, help. She goes, oh my god, my lover, I think, and runs after him like, baby, I'm gonna save you. And they're like in knee-high water. Like, there's no, like, knee-high. In fact, a little bit below the knee, because the camera goes underneath the water to like show you what's going on and not show you booty at all. That's not the point of that camera. It's an intense shot for intense, scary things. There's a musical stab that acts as a jump scare, and the toxic shock jumps out of the water. No, I'm getting ahead of myself. The toxic shock comes from underneath the water, pulls her under. It cuts to the image of the toxic shock. I can't even say the word shock, and I chose this movie. It's that important, okay, guys? goes underneath the water and is eating this woman alive, completely submerged in water. Again, under the knee length, like, water. And then eats her alive, spews a whole bunch of goo out of like a unicorn horn in the shape of a penis on this shark's face, spews the dude up in goo, he goes, ah! And then he runs around the rock, and he's like, I'm safe from the toxic shark. And then he looks up at the camera like a 1980s Scream Queen, screams his lungs out, and the shark jumps over the rock picture like he's seen Free Willy too many times, eats the dude, and then that's the cold open. And then it immediately cuts to a shit ton of people in a bikini and bathing suits. I don't know why I said in a bikini. They're not showing one bikini. Toxic Shark has broken my fucking brain. I'm going through my notes because apparently when you watch movies for a podcast, you have to make notes to a song that goes, head down, bottoms up, the music fills your cup, let the music hit your tongue. What does that mean? Like, even as a sexual innuendo, what does that mean? I don't understand. And then you meet like our three main guy characters. They're the dudes, bro. Who, one guy, like, they call out. He's like, I work at the telephone and this is all super expensive. And the other guy goes, who I swear to Christ on a biscuit was the main dude from Sons of Anarchy, and I spent like 20 minutes looking up that dude to be like, is it him? I'm pretty sure it's him. It's not him. It's some other dude, apparently, who was in a movie called Crabs. Like, oh, what is this movie? He goes over, and he's like, but when was the last time you paid a phone bill? And he's like, if you fix the line, you don't pay the fine. And no one has ever said that. Ever. Like, those are not words people have put out into the universe, yet someone got paid to write them. Then they had this other dude, I think his name is Ryan. I honestly don't know, because he's just like bulging muscles. He's the definition of a himbo, and I've recently been taught that term because of this movie. Not really. I heard it on a live stream. It was very confusing for everyone. But he, like, puts on a tight shirt, like a woman's tight shirt. And part of the joke is that it's a woman's shirt. And can't get out of it. So he tries to go into the water at one point. And just lifts his arms up like a toddler. The black dude who works at the telephone company is like, nah, bro, ain't touching that. And the movie just continues. Like, that's not a fascinating, like, everything that just happened there. And then you meet our three main girl characters, our main female leads of this movie, as you were. And they walk up and like, oh my gosh, I hate my ex. My ex is awful. I'm so glad we went to this all-inclusive, like, fitness singles resort to go to, like, not think about him. Oh my gosh, I'm a nerd. I like to read books. And I'm like, what the fuck, movie? Hard left turn, but would you believe it? These three guys and these three gals know each other. And wouldn't you believe it? Again, the handsome blonde boy that looks like Sons of Anarchy, man. And Discount Drew Barrymore over here, of course she's blonde too, they're each other's exes. That drama continues. So, while all that's happening, everyone's like, how did this happen? And the telephone dude's like, oh, well, I read it out of a magazine while I was using a toilet. So just outing himself as reading magazines on the shitter, like, and he's the cool guy. Like, he's like the capable dude up to this point. Not the main star, because, you know, you always have like a cool dude who's not the main star, and then you got the main star. He's the cool dude who turns out to be a complete, like, panic-stricken, like, can't handle anything crybaby who basically has lines like Chris Rock rejected them 4 times before he got slapped in the face later on in the movie, which is just like, oh my God. He's like, oh, yeah, those were her magazines. No wonder why she's here. And he goes, I'm here. And he goes, we're just going to stay away from each other. Like, we're just going to be, like, on the same island, but apart. And I'm like, that didn't work for COVID either, bro. Like, I don't know what you're doing. And this whole time, there are other characters in this movie. Okay? There were, like, a whole, like, list of extras and, like, resort staff or something. I don't understand what they're at. It gets called at one point, looking at my notes again, if I can open up my phone because I'm so like about this movie. It's like a magical Tinder island. That's where these people are at. And it's just absolutely ridiculous. So all this stuff is going on, and then it just hard cuts away to the used to be a head chef in a New York complains about working there with, I think, his assistant, his, like, mixing boy. I don't know what this guy is to him. And he's like, I can't get any fish. We watch a very long and strange and kind of uncomfortable scene of two men just, like, complaining about fish and talking about their one character trait of used to be a head chef in New York and I'm just here, dude, because you need someone to talk to. Like, but I don't pay me to be a therapist. And they're just like, Then Mr. Chef Man, Mr. Ex-Chef Man, alright? He decides the best thing to do, right? Because he's done with this job. He's quitting this job, effective immediately. Mr. Reese, the guy who owns the club. Mr. Reese, I am, like, ending my my employment here. I'm leaving. Walks into the ocean. Like that was an option. Again, they don't have a boat. They walked out to basically a sandbar with a net to catch fish to cook for dinner. Oh, and this is right after we find out that one of the main female leads is, like, allergic to everything from the ocean. Like, what the fuck are you doing here? Besides the pad the body count at this point. Like, what? Poke? And on top of that, everyone is super thirsty. Everyone is so thirsty. It's like, oh my gosh. Guys, the ocean's right there. Drink up. But don't, because there's a toxic shock in the mix. And if you've forgotten that, and just like the will they won't they drama of Eden, the main female lead, and Sam, the male man lead, getting back together on magical Tinder islands. Like, if you can put aside that riveting tale, there's a toxic shock eating chefs and, like, busboys over here in the ocean. Then there's my favorite scene, my favorite fucking scene in this entire movie, I shit you not, is this woman. We've never met this woman before. She is unlike every other woman in this movie at this point, except for, like, one other one, is in full clothes. Like, she actually is wearing, like, shorts and a shirt. She's on a horse. Again, only horse we see in the entire film is this one scene. And I'm now over here thinking, like, I could have been watching Nope again. But instead, I'm watching The Toxic Shock. Instead, I'm watching The Toxic Shock. She's sitting on a horse and goes like, oh, you love the water. The water is great, horse. Doesn't give the horse a name whatsoever. I'm pretty sure she just goes, what's wrong? You love the water. What's wrong today? The horse is like, nah, man, I've seen how this scene ends. I ain't going near the water. And the horse is like, stays perfectly still. Doesn't move his lips. They just add in a horse sound of, like, that's, like no one was gonna call them out on that shit. What? The Toxic Shock then leaps out of the ocean, perfectly snipes this woman off of the horse, just, as presumably to just flop on the like sand next to the horse, and the horse just stands there calm as shit. Like, obviously there's no such thing as a toxic shock, but like if that had happened, that horse would be losing its fucking mind. That horse needs to be as high as Snoop Dogg and Seth Rogen combined to not be losing its absolute shit at a giant penis fish leaping out of the water to eat the rider they were on. Like, there's a bit and range in this horse's mouth. That human got yanked at the very least. Like, that horse should have reeled up at the very least. Favorite scene in the whole fucking movie, and we're only in like 20 minutes at this point. That's the other thing. They knew this was a shit movie. They didn't go for the 490. They weren't ballsy enough to go for the 490. That's the true horror. This movie's like, hey, I want to respect your time. 180. And you're like, thank God. I have another quote from this movie that I had to just type out. Because I also wrote my immediate reaction as well. Social media spirituality. I responded, I cannot wait for all these fuckers to be dying. To be dying. Another classic, absolute classic line in this movie. Water is great. I love this water. Let's all go to the water. Why? And then my second favorite scene after the horse scene, because you gotta give it up to the horse. Like, that is a stone cold war horse. That horse has seen some shit. Like, seen some shit. Stone cold like a motherfucker. After the motherfucking horse. Favorite interaction in this whole movie. Behind three characters. I need to set the scene. Because in this scene, there's a group of people playing tug of war in the ocean. Staff has been notified that there was a problem with the ocean. So they start pulling people out of the water. And at some point, the himbo I discussed earlier, who raised his arms up like a child to have the shirt cut off of his body, he's at the end and he's screaming, I'm a beast! You can't be a beast! Our main character, Sam, goes, yes, you can. And then another character goes, he's like a cartoon character. Now, I'm going to put in some extra inflection in my voice to kind of show exactly how this scene went down. And keep in mind, there's like 16 people in the scene playing tug of war for some fucking reason in the ocean. So I'm a back up from the mic because I don't want to. I've been yelling a lot because I've so many things to say about this fucking movie, but I don't want to intentionally blow your ears out. I've been very excited, but I need to like calm back down. Okay. I'm a beast! You can't be a beast! Yes, you can. He's like a cartoon character. There was nothing that signified in their voices that they were playing tug of war or that they were in the ocean at all. And it's just okay. But I had to look up multiple times in this movie if this movie was in fact an American film, because I watch a lot of foreign films because I like foreign films. I think that especially horror movies, like Korean horror, pristine. Japanese horror, pristine. Like, those are the scary fucking ghost stories of my nightmares. I had to make sure that this movie was in fact American if I was going to rip into it as much. That's not saying I'm not going to not rip into foreign films if they need to be, but this was a special case. I think you can agree. This Vacation Really Bites. Toxic Shock is a 2017 American action horror film directed by Cole Sharp. Now, it turns out throughout the shenanigans of this movie that the Toxic Shock is spewing arsenic. I didn't know this, and I'm really thankful that I watched the movie Toxic Shock to learn this, but apparently when an animal secretes arsenic, an arsenic-based compound, apparently, it shoots out like a firing hose and looks like Nickelodeon green slime. And that's just, again, fucking brilliant. This movie is listed as a horror movie, an action horror movie. And with it being the last week of summer, I really wanted to get an action horror movie. I wanted to get like a shock horror movie. Jaws was a horror movie for its time, and it like epitomized what the action blockbuster, the summer blockbuster could be. And for its time, it's a horror movie through and through. It's a thriller, and it's iconic, and it's brilliant. I really wanted to do that. But this is magnifique. Oh my gosh. What? And, truly the artistry of Toxic Shock wasn't lost on me. I appreciated it. I loved this movie so much. And then the rabid zombies came in. That's right. If the Toxic Shock bites you or deals with any damage to you whatsoever, you get arsenic poisoning. Now, I'm about to do a search on my phone that's going to put me on a couple of watch lists. And you know what? That is fine. It doesn't also help that I typed in Bodies, that other horror movie, the horror comedy movie that came out this week, which I might see that actually. That might be another movie that we talk about on this podcast. But let me just Google very quickly what is arsenic poisoning symptoms. Just want to make sure. I just want like a list of symptoms. Google. Vomiting, abdominal pain, diarrhea, tingling, muscle cramping, death in extreme cases, Okay. That was off the World Health Organization, by the way. Please, don't look at my cell phone. Big government. You know what isn't on that immediate list of arsenic poisoning? And I mean, granted, it's Google. Granted, it's like the first result of the World National Health Organization. I didn't look that far into it. But you know what's not on my list whatsoever? Delirium. Complete mental regression to like having vivid flashbacks from when you're like about 9 years old. Oh, and eating another human being. There's a scene in this movie where this woman with arsenic poisoning is just like chomping down on a person. And they're like, hey, you're doing okay? And calls her name. And she just like mimics calling her name like a small child, like an adult, and then like a demon, which never gets brought up again. And then goes and attacks the freaking people. All of the editing in this movie, maybe there was an actually really impactful and meaningful movie in here about like, environmentalism and like vanity and like not appreciating those you have until you lose them. Maybe all that's in there. The editing guy needs to be shot on site. Please don't do that. Oh, like human being life is like super valuable. Please don't do that. Okay. There were so many scenes and so many lines in this movie that are just delivered off screen. Like, off screen. Okay. Like, I had to check so many times if this was an American film. Just because of that. I'm repeating that again because of how absolutely nonsensical that is. How, even if you're sci-fi, do you film a movie and then forget to get at least 40% of the lines actually said in the movie? How? What the fuck, sci-fi? I got so excited about Toxic Shock that I forgot to tell you the rules of this podcast. I'm going to wrap it up with this. So the rule of the podcast is it has to be a horror movie. Even if no one in their right mind would describe it as a horror film, if horror is listed as one of those genres, it's going to count. Also, if it is counted as Halloween adjacent, like I don't think anyone would consider Halloween Town to be a horror film, but it's definitely like Halloween adjacent. And the third and most important rule, I cannot watch a single one of these movies before I start watching them for the podcast. And this is going to be a daily series that comes out on my new channel, Ravenslander Podcasts. That's a thing. You can go subscribe to that. Didn't expect it to be this, though. To be the first thing on, though. Surprise! I will see you tomorrow with hopefully a better film. I don't know. I think I'm going to go to Shudder because they have some good films that I'm kind of curious about. Well, not good films. I don't know if they're good. But I think what I'm going to watch... Here, let's do this like right now, actually. As I'm on the mic. Let's do this right now. I really don't want to watch another animal or fucking zombie film for the moment. So here, let's hit another staple of the genre. So that was 2017, Toxic Shock. We are gonna go to 2020 and see Color Out of Space, starring Nicolas Cage. This would be fucking something. Ooh, okay. Oh, there's another fucking horror film. Okay. This podcast might be the greatest decision I've ever made. No, so tomorrow we are going to be watching... Well, maybe... Hold on. There's a movie I want to see. Yes, okay. It's a Shudder original. No, this is where we're going to go. So, cause I still want to kind of keep the beach and like the summer vibe going for a little bit longer. At least for like the next two things. Oh no. I read 2 reviews. Oh no. So, I'm in now. Okay. So the movie we're going to watch tomorrow is a movie called The Seed on Shudder, directed by Sam Walker. Here are the first two reviews of it. Too much of a slow burn and lack of consistent pacing. Kind of like Stepford Wives meets Xotto. I have no idea how to pronounce that. But not very good. I'm sure the director's next effort will be better. And that was by What X Remains. I can read things. And then the second review for The Seed on Shudder. Pretty bad. The kind of thing you might find on Sci-Fi Channel on a Sunday afternoon. I kept waiting for it to develop into something in vain. So this is the movie we're going to be watching next. It is a Shudder original, and it's called The Seed. Also, this is probably going to be another, this is going to be not very, safe for kids, this entire thing. Because we're talking about murder, we're talking about, R-rated movies, so don't want to let your children listen to this or watch these movies. I think that would be bad. But yeah. Oh, I just saw another beautiful thing. We have time. We have so much time. So yes, tomorrow, The Seed on Shudder. Thank you guys for listening. I will see you tomorrow for the next episode of 100 Days of Halloween.